things where the more Hello, everybody. I just want to make sure the chat is working. So if you guys want to say anything, go ahead and type in the chat. I'm monitoring the Pixelogic one, or I'm sorry, the Facebook one separately. So you can go ahead and, if you're on Facebook, you can go ahead and type something in. And if you are on Twitch or on YouTube, then you can go ahead and type in as well. I'll go ahead and start after I see a few chats. I don't see anything coming in yet on either one of the two. Right. Okay, so looks like we got chats coming in from all areas, and we'll go ahead and get started. Right, one more little thing to do here. All right. Okay, so here we go. We're going to continue on from where we left off last time. And last time we left it at this point, and what we did, just to do a quick summary, if you were not on, the video is available. You can go ahead and watch it. By the way, how's the audio? Am I too loud? Is the audio volume okay? If somebody could type in the chat. Okay, good. All right, so what we did is we started out with a, let me hide these so I can just kind of quickly go through and remind everybody what we did. Again, the video is available on the Pixelogic Live website, also on YouTube, Pixelogic's YouTube site. So if you, this is the first time you're logging in, you can go in and follow through what I did last time. So we basically start out with a simple human being, and then created a Z-sphere rig after that. So we basically started creating a rig, and we used this kind of rectangular cube as the connector between the Z-spheres, and what we got was this. So I need to hide the previous ones. And we added some more Z-spheres to it and got something a little bit more better, and got something that looks a little bit more better gesturally. And then we generated a skin out of it. And then we made some modifications to that skin, and then we doubled up, made it a little bit even bigger, and then continued to refine it to get to this shape. And then we went ahead and dynameshed and zero meshed it to get kind of this inside part of the mech. Or the robot, I guess, at this point. And then we sculpted on that a little bit, so, and also poly painted it, and finally ended up with a external exoskeleton parts. So these are all going to be exoskeleton parts that we're going to develop. And then this is the internal part, which is more of a kind of a softer, excuse me, softer model. And this is going to be some of the joints. So here, if you can see them together, you can see that, and I'll see if I can choose a darker color here to differentiate them. So the darker color objects are going to be more hard surface, excuse me, and then the inside parts, the kind of the lighter color, are going to be tubes and muscles and things like that. So this is where we left it last time. So let me go ahead and bring the color back up. And today we're going to continue this on further. Now, before we continue on, I also wanted to throw a quick Z-sphere rig in here to pose this character, right? So now that we have this generated with a Z-sphere rig, we can go ahead and put another Z-sphere rig inside of this, and then use that to pose the model. So I don't know if I'm going to do this today, or I'm going to do it next time. I was contemplating doing it today, but I think maybe today we'll go ahead and start adding in some of the secondary forms in here to get this into a better shape. All right. So here we go. The first thing we're going to do here is, again, observe this model and figure out where hinges would go, right? So and all the different joints, all the different areas where they are connected. So here we can see that, you know, in a human being, this over here would be a ball joint over here where the hips connect to the femur. And so what we're going to do here is I'm just going to simulate the joints by adding in different pieces. So to do that, I'm going to use a brush that comes with insert mesh brush that comes with ZBrush, which is the primitives one. And where is that? IMM primitives right here, and then there's the two primitives here, and I'm going to use the one that is not half but full primitives. So here we've got all these primitives to choose from, and we're going to place them. So I guess I will place a sphere where spherical joints go, and maybe, are there more? Yeah, there are. And then maybe a cylinder where the kind of the hinge type joints go. All right, let me make sure I turn this music off completely. All right, here we go. All right, so I'll start out, let's take a quick look at all the different options here. I'll start out with the cylinders, and I'll go ahead and start out with this one. Maybe I'll just use one of these. And I'm working on the non-muscular part, right? And I'm going to separate these out anyway. All right, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and add a cylinder this way. All right, and then just go ahead and place it in where it needs to go. And again, these are just placeholders. I will probably either replace these with kit bash parts or modify them and add make them a little bit different. Okay, so there's one hinge joint, and then I'm going to duplicate that one and add another one here. And by the way I'm doing that duplication is by holding down Control, and maybe these are a bit too big, so I'm going to kind of go back to about here, make them a bit smaller, like so they're not too obtrusive. Okay, maybe a bit longer. And I've got mirroring on, so or symmetry on, so there I'm putting one of these on each side. All right, doing that, let me go ahead and take a quick look at the chat here to see if anybody has any questions or anything that they need me to clarify. Okay, so hello everyone, hi, good morning from the UK, 3 a.m. Wow. Thanks for joining us from the UK. I know you guys are having some exciting times there today. All right, and if you're not in Southern California, we've been having some rain here, a lot of rain, which is a good thing, I guess. All right, so here I'm going to go ahead and let me center this over here on it, and then I'm just going to duplicate this and create another copy and place that one over here. Okay, so there's going to be two joints over here to control the elbow. So unlike a human being, what I'm doing is this is more of a robotic character, so it's going to have two hinges that control the elbow. All right, so that's good. And then here what's happening is I'm accidentally clicking on one of these guys. And by the way, this is usually docked on top. And for me, I'm docking it over to the right. And if anybody wants to know how to do that, ask in the chat and I will let you know. Oh, we've got somebody from India. That's great. Welcome aboard. Let me make sure here that I'm paying attention to oh, yep, there's a bunch of people joining in on Facebook as well. Hey, Steve. Hey, Bay. Hey, Timur. All right, and Chadwick. Wow, got a bunch of people I know joining in. All right, so here we go. Here's that second one. I'm going to kind of go back to the original size. So there's that. Okay, so now we've got two of these things happening, and I think that's good. For the joint over here, the joint on the wrist on a human being is kind of a different joint than this one. So what I'm going to do here is, again, I'm just going to use Control and duplicate this and bring it over. So if I had the joint just this way, then what would happen is that the hands would only rotate in a certain way. So that's not what I want. What I want is for them to center this on here. What I want them to do is rotate this way as well as turn around. So what I'm going to do is yet create another copy of this and rotate it like so, rotate it like so, and place that over here. So this is going to be this is going to be kind of a double joint. Totally messed it up. I think I messed up this one too. You can see kind of how it's skewed. I want it to be really straight, so I kind of have to go back to where that problem started and then very quickly get back to where I was before. I think it was probably over here where I did the resize. Let's go all the way back to here. There we go. All right, and I'm going to place this in the center and do the resize here. Nope, it's going to continue to do that. All right. No worries. Just kind of leave it at that for now. And it's I spend a little bit of time on this now, but later on when I'm posing the character, all this will be super helpful to kind of know where these different joints are. And if I'm going to 3D print this and articulate it, it will work out that way as well, right? So here we're making this one, moving it into place. It's always good to kind of go around your model, kind of figure out where things go. Here's 2, here's 3. Goes in there, And then again, the one that basically does the other type of rotation, which I want to do this and this too. This gizmo is super useful. I used to do all this with the transpose line, which is also really neat, but this works out pretty well. And here I'm just going to reset, change the size of it to a bit smaller to kind of be that one joint over there, like so. Okay, let's make sure it's where it needs to be. Okay, so now I kind of have in my mind, I know that this hand is going to rotate in two ways. It's going to rotate along the cylinder this way, if you can see it, and it's also going to rotate the other way. All right, so now let's go ahead and figure out some other ones here. So I'm going to go ahead and start over with another one of these and place that one. So if I'm done with these ones, okay. Now notice here, and let me isolate this so you can see it. So notice here that it basically added all these parts to this one piece, and they're all masked. So what I could do at this point is go ahead and do a split, and split to similar parts. And okay, so what that will do is it'll put all those cylinders into another subtool for me. So here they are. And I can go back to this one, turn this one on so I can see them. Right, so now they're separate subtools, and now I can kind of go ahead and continue to add more of these parts to my mech. So here we'll go ahead and go back to the primitives. We'll choose this one and go back to draw, and we're going to place one over here like so. So I've got symmetry on, and then this one, I'm going to rotate it this way and move it here. Okay, so this is going to be the one that's going to rotate the torso or of the robot, or the chest part. Okay, so there it is. Turning transparency on is a good idea at this point so I can see what's going on inside. There it is, yep. All right, so that's good. I'm happy with that. And what I can do here is just go ahead and make a copy of that. Maybe there's another one up here. And maybe there's a spine that controls the whole thing. So here we go. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this and move it over. So one of the interesting things is that once you center the thing, and if you try to expand it out, and if I turn on polyframe, you'll see what happens is that it expands it out as one piece. It's kind of a cool trick to make a shape like the one I just showed you. Right, so if you're going to make a shape that looks like this, what you do is you basically turn symmetry on, X symmetry, place that object, and then as you move it, it will move it out this way. So this is how you can get this shape pretty quickly. So kind of a nifty little trick there. But here I don't want it to do that. I actually want two separate pieces, so I'm just going to go ahead and go back into draw mode and just draw out to two separate pieces. So I'm going to have two here, like so, that are going to control the elbow, I guess, or not the elbow, the shoulder. Yeah, so again, this is, you know, where the scapula would be, I guess, but the robot kind of works a little bit differently. So there is a joint over here, and that connects to another one that goes in here. And again, I could either choose to use these later, or I can replace them with kit bash parts, but this is how I'm basically going ahead and adding the different pieces. All right, so if anybody has questions, ask away. I'll stop every once in a while and look at the chat. There's another person pulling in 3 a.m. Thank you so much, from Scotland. Awesome. And East Coast of Canada. Wow, everybody's telling me where they're from. That's like all over the world. That's awesome. Could you use primitive deformer instead of the insert mesh? The primitive deformer. Yeah, I could. But what the primitive deformer will do is it will actually replace the entire object. So Rethon Studios, I guess, is the person asking the question. So I'll show you what I mean. So here, interestingly enough, when I did that split to similar parts, there were all these little pieces that I didn't know about. So let me go ahead and delete them. real quick. Wow, look at that. All these fun pieces. All right, and so I guess the question is, and here I'll just go ahead and add a one of these guys, right? So if I use the insert mesh, I'm basically adding to the object. So here they are, and I'm just basically adding one of these guys to it, right? But if I, let me turn Symmetry on too. Bring back my custom config here. So if I turn Symmetry on, right? If I add those, I'm basically adding them. But if I went and did the primitive deformer, if I went into here to add them, what it will do is it will replace the one piece, right? So it will replace whatever was selected before. So I hope that answers the questions. Will this mech have guns on it? You know, I'm going to try not to, but chances are, yes, it will. What I'm doing is I kind of gave it a little bit more thought. What I'm going to do is make a more general purpose mech. So this is going to be a general purpose mech that is developed by a company. And then I'm going to have it in a lot of different scenarios. And one of them, of course, is as a soldier. So the soldier one will probably have a gun. But basically, it doesn't have anything attached to it. It's kind of a ambidextrous kind of a robot that basically can have any part added to it as they need to, and we'll make attachments and whatnot. So like I mentioned last week, we're going to do this over 8 weeks. So you know, today probably we'll get along pretty good with figuring out all the joints and maybe doing some hard surface modeling on some of these hard surface parts. All right, coming back to where we were here. So we just added this hinge over here, which is good. Let's go back to draw mode. And we're going to add another one this way, like so, and go to W here, rotate this around, place it over here like that. And there is that. Like so. Okay, so now I've got this piece placed over here. And notice that if I resize it, I need to make sure that my pivot is in the center. So this little button over here will take me to that center. And now I can kind of resize it based on that. Okay, so I just want that to be there. That's good. I'll make sure that that's not warped. It's not. And it doesn't matter if it's warped or not. I just am concerned that if it is warped, then I might not be able to use it as a piece. Okay, so that's good. So this is going to rotate, this cylinder is going to rotate this forward and backwards. So it's going to rotate kind of like so with the arm, right? It's going to give the robot this range. And what I want to do, I'm going to place some ball joints later on, but for now I'm just going to kind of continue with this. All right, so that's good. Let's go back to draw mode here and draw another cylinder over here, like so. By the way, to go to draw mode, I'm just basically pressing Q. For all those of you that don't use that, it's pretty handy if you use the keyboard. QWER makes your life a lot faster. Okay, so here's this one, and I'm going to turn ghosting on so I can see a little bit better inside. Right, so there's a cylinder that's going to go over here. Right, so this whole arm, actually, this is kind of a better place for it right here. Make it bigger, center it, place it over here, like so. Okay, so this is going to be where this one is going to go. And I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger. Right, so this will also hinge around that part right there, like so, right? So this whole arm will bend around this way, and then I have to figure out a way how this connects to this. So all this stuff is really useful later on when I'm posing the model to know how this is going to articulate correctly. So try this one more time. Actually, go ahead and jump back, go to draw mode, and just draw the right size here. Okay, there it is, and place that around here like so. right, a little bit too big, make it a bit smaller. All right, and that's a good place for this piece, right? So, okay, so I've got the hand kind of going down. I'm not really going to worry about fingers right now. I'm going to give this thing maybe a lot, there's an attachment here and then things attached to it. So if a gun's going to attach to it, then it attaches to it here, or some of it could have more of a dexterous finger type of claw or something like that. So we'll figure all that out later on. All right, so that's good kind of for the upper body. The neck, I should put a hinge here. And maybe another one. Oops. Let's rotate that in the right direction. So again, notice that as I'm rotating, I'm getting this kind of effect because the mirroring is on. So I can turn mirroring off real quick and rotate it so I don't have that issue. Place this in the center, place this in the center, and bring it back up to here. Okay, so there it is. Like so. Okay, so we've got one piece here. And I'm just going to copy that to another one over here like so. So I've got two pieces and maybe one more down here. All right, so again, by holding control and just kind of moving these, I'm getting these to get in place. One of the things I've done here is I just turned perspective off. Perspective kind of messes things up. That's why these are a little bit wonky. So let's just start this whole thing over with perspective off. Right, so I'm in draw mode, draw this, W, rotate it. Actually, start with symmetry on, draw it out so it's exactly in the center. And then turn symmetry off and then rotate it. There we go, a bit too big. Let's pop this in the center. All right, so maybe one about here and then another one about here and another one down below. Okay, so that takes care of the neck. I also need one of the ones that I have down here. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. So now I can go ahead and again separate out the pieces. So here I'm just going to clear the mask, which I'm going to do Dynamesh I didn't want, and I'm just going to do it. Hopefully it won't crash. Okay, and let me see something here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make sure Dynamesh is turned off, so it doesn't Dynamesh it. Okay, and then clear the mask, and then again do that split to similar parts. Okay, so now I've got these, and I can merge these down, so I just have one tool that has all these joints in it, right? So this is going to be kind of a skeletal system, or the kind of the motion system. It looks like I've got some extra ones here I don't need. I'll delete them later. Okay, so back to this, back to that. And so we've taken care of the neck. We've taken care of most of the upper part of the body here. Let's go ahead and start moving down to here. So these are going to be ball joints. I'm not going to put those there yet. Let's just do the knees. So again, I'll pick one of these guys, and let me go to right, so there are those parts, and here what I want to do is add one of these guys as a knee portion. Let me choose the brush. This part, and draw mode, place one. Okay. All right, so I need to turn symmetry back on, and here's one, like so, and then let's put it in place. So again, the knees are also going to be double jointed. Again, I'm going based on some robots that I've actually seen work and articulate. So I'm going to go ahead and do this too right here. All right, let me take a quick look at the chat because there's a bunch of people saying good stuff. All right, from Pakistan. Wow. As a beginner, I need to know your computer specs. You know, the good news is ZBrush doesn't really need a very powerful computer. So I could be doing this on a kind of a run-of-the-mill PC. I would definitely have 8 to 16 gigs of RAM. Definitely would want to have one of the newer Intel chips, but I've seen ZBrush hack itself really admirably on kind of weaker computers like the Surface Go. So you don't really need a very powerful computer to be using ZBrush. And in my case, I just basically have just a PC Windows 10 box. I do have a lot of RAM. I do have 64 gigs of RAM, and I do have a powerful processor, but again, that will help me when I render, but here it doesn't really matter. Okay, and all right. All right, so hopefully that answers your question about computer specs. And then here, could use a, okay, let's see. Yeah, so nothing new on Twitch or YouTube. All right, so now we've got these hinges over here for the foot, and then for the foot roll here, I'm also going to go ahead and double up the hinges on the feet, and maybe not have one be so big here, and just maybe have another one kind of over here. So that's kind of looking good. Let's go to spheres here, and let's go ahead and just choose a chalk polysphere. I don't need it to be too high res. And did that just replace the one I had down below? Of course it did. Okay, so let's go back to draw mode, and oops. What happened there? All right, so we'll go ahead and place these spheres, maybe not so big, over here to be the, I need to make sure I kind of, here we go. And let's pop this in the center, move these over. So these are going to be, you know, ball joints over here. So I've basically put spheres in their place. And I'm also going to have a couple of these up here, and I'll just go ahead and draw them in. So I'm going to have a ball joint here and a ball joint here that are going to be basically the base of where the scapula is. And again, if you had one of these robots that I showed last time, that's how it's articulated. So I'm basically just going based on that articulation. And all of this will help me later on to figure out what kind of parts to make. All right, so this all is good here. So let's go ahead and start adding some other components to this. All right, Bin Vichar joined. Vikar, how's it going, man? Good to have you on here. All right, so now what we got to do is figure out, all right, so if we have all these kind of different actuators, where's the motor of these things? What's running it? So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the future and imagine that there is no, each one of these motors is independent, right? So each one of these is like a dynamo, and each one of these moves independent of the other, but also in conjunction with the entire body. So if that makes sense to you, that doesn't mean that there is one motor controlling all of this. It just means that each one of these is going to be its own motor, and it's going to be basically driving this component, and then the rest of the body is all going to be controlled through a processor that makes these things move independently. So if you kind of know what flying by wire is in an airplane, where all the different ailerons and everything kind of independently operate, but are connected through some sort of a CPU, we're kind of doing a similar type of arrangement here with this robot. Okay, so now that we have this, then let's go ahead and start working on some of these hard surface parts. So I had all of these kind of in here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and duplicate that. So I've got a copy of it. and we'll hide the old one. And here on the duplicate, I'm just going to go ahead and isolate it, and we'll start looking at these parts. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start out with this chest piece right here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and split this into separate parts as well. Let's go ahead and turn polyframe on. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and split this to similar parts. It's going to maybe create a whole bunch of parts, but that's fine. Split to similar parts. Okay, and so now I have a bunch of parts. So these are all the center parts that did not have a similar part to them. This one I can get rid of. Make a nice little knife, but I don't need it. And then I've got these chest pieces, the hips, this, and this. All right, so let's turn all these off. So we're just looking at the parts that we are going to be working on. Okay, so there's the kind of the crotch part. This is kind of the hips, chest. It's kind of a abdomen area over here. And then for some reason it grouped everything else together, which is okay, I guess. What I'm going to do is separate out the legs. So here what I'm going to do is use the selection and just select these parts. I'm also going to hide that inside skeleton. I don't really need to see that one over here, and I'm going to move it down in the organization of the mech. Okay, so here, these are the legs. I separated them out, and then where are the arms? Okay, so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go into geometry. Actually, I've got it on a menu here, and I'm going to split masked or split hidden. Okay, so the hidden parts are split. So this is going to be just the legs, and then this looks like it's the entire body on top. So let's go ahead and see if I can isolate that to just the arms without the rest of it. So a good way to do that is to just go ahead and select these parts like so, right? And then grow it out. So under display here, under visibility, I think, yeah, grow it out to its full shape. And then let's hit split masked or hidden parts. So now I've got the body itself as one part, the legs as a part, and then I should have the arms and shoulders as one part. So that's good. I kind of want that middle piece to be its own thing too. So let's do that. This guy right here, I want it to be its own piece. So again, split hidden. All right, so we have the arms and shoulders as one piece, and then I'll be probably separating those out too, and then we have all these other pieces. All right, so what should we start working on first? How about these pieces right here? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go into just the regular move tool and pick a good gesture for these chest pieces. Now, let's see, any questions? Nope, awesome. Yeah, if you have questions, just chime in. And if you're just joining us, and it looks like some new people have joined, what we're doing here is we're just basically, first we separate out what the hinges are. And now, by the way, if you're going to sculpt on something and it's on transparency mode and you can't, like here, I can't sculpt on this, that's because I don't have ghost mode on. So if I turn ghost mode on, then I can sculpt through the object. And what I want to do is make sure these are separate, and it doesn't look like they are. Okay, so I'm going to separate them out using a nifty trick here. Actually, let me see, solo this thing out. All right, looks like it's just one piece in the back here. I guess that'll work. Why not? I'm going to go to ZModeler and see if I can Q-mesh these together. That worked. And maybe Q-mesh these together. That didn't work. All right, how about the bottom ones? How about these ones? Yep, that worked, and then work myself up. ZModeler is so cool. All right, it looks like I've got This area here is a little bit weird because it's got that middle part here. So I might fix that later on. And then I've got a little bit of a gap here, which I can also, is that the same piece? It is. All right. So again, I'm going to use ZModeler here and delete some faces. Sometimes I take things like this into Maya and do this part, but here it's easy enough just to do it in ZModeler. And right, another thing I want to do here is turn on double so I can see inside. Maybe I don't need these either. All right, so now what I want to do is go into, I can either do this via ZModeler, or I can do it via another way. So here, it looks like I just can bridge one. So I'm going to basically turn off symmetry for a second and then use bridging. Bridge this edge to this edge. Oops. Yeah, let's try and delete a poly off. Okay, and then bridge this one to this one. Should choose a smaller brush size and make it more precise. This edge to this edge. Nope, I want to go somewhere inside, which is not what we want. This one to this one. Okay, so I've got that bridged. And then here for this one, I'm just going to close the hole. So let's see what the bottom one looks like. Yeah, that's a closed hole too. So let's do that. Actually, yeah, I'd be deleting too many polygons to get rid of this connection. So I'm going to actually have it be connected. So another nifty trick here is I want to put an edge loop right in the middle of this, right? And to do that, you just go to Insert, right, under Edge in ZModeler, multiple edge loops, and you bring the specified number to 1. And then if you add an edge loop, it adds it right smack in the middle. I need to stitch these 2 points, so let's go ahead and do that. Stitch this one to this one. All right, so, and it's always good to hit D to kind of see what the contiguous nature of your mesh is. It's looking good. And I'm just going to go into geometry here and close holes to close the rest of the 2 sections that I have. Let's see what that will do. I added a triangle in there, but that's fine. And did something funky up here too, which is also fine for now. So let me drop out of that. And just want to make sure this thing is kind of closed up. Let me hit this with Shift real quick. Yeah, it's closed up. Okay. All right, so so here's our chest piece right here, and let's go ahead and bring the rest of the mech up, and then I'll go back into the move brush and start kind of moving these into place. Let's activate symmetry, and we don't need to be in that mode because we want some hard edges. Okay, so I'm looking at this from all different angles, kind of coming up with that initial chest piece, which is going to basically be housing all of the some of the main parts of the robot. So this is going to be kind of a protective chest. Do that sternum thing here, and I have this going in quite a bit. I might not want it to go in that much. So here I'm basically sculpting in without perspective on, so that I get things to match on both sides. So this looks good as far as this front part is concerned. And again, I'm basically just doing this with basic shapes, and maybe do something like that. All right, and notice I'm working with very low resolution here, and I do have some triangles, but the minute I divide this thing up, it'll be quads again, so I'll be a happy camper. All right, so this is going to, I'm going to have to figure out how this thing attaches to the body, and I'm assuming that there'll probably be some sort of a attachment over here. So this is one way it attaches. And then for the bottom part, it doesn't really have a place to attach, so I have to add that in. So I'm going to go to ZModeler here and QMesh a couple of pieces out. If I can Q-mesh this thing down and add it for me. Nope. All right, so I'll have to kind of figure something else out. Maybe what I'll do is just slice it. You slice curve and just add a slice right there, and that gives me the attachment point in the center here. So I'll just pull these out. See here, does Q-mesh have triangles on? I think it does. No, let's go to face, Q-mesh, and single poly. All right, let's see if this works. Here we go. So this part here is what's going to be attached to the bottom of, or the base of the mech. All right, so another nifty thing to use. By the way, ZBrush is doing my quick save, so it's a good time for me to look at the chat. Agreed on ZModeler, lets you stay inside ZBrush. Yep, definitely. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the clip curve, which is super useful. And just bring clip curve over here. And okay, so now this is kind of where this is going to attach over to here. And I'm just going to move brush here and just kind of make a little area where it's going to attach in. Okay, so a lot of times you don't really need to give a lot of thought to this stuff, but if you're going to actually make something believable, you kind of have to create some scenarios where this stuff is useful. And I see a lot of mechs out there on ArtStation that are really beautiful and gnarly looking and great, but I'm always left wondering like how these things would function, or if they would, and if they were in a movie, how the animators would make it function and fight and move and do all the things that they do. All right, so I'm just kind of going to do that. Okay, so this piece is I'm pretty happy with the overall shape of it, and the only thing I'm kind of worried about is that this piece right here is going to maybe conflict with that elbow or this top part bending. So I either need to lower it to about there. I think that'll work better. All right, so let's move on to this one on top. And let's start working on that one. This is a really simple shape, so it shouldn't take us long to get it to be what we want it to be. All right, so this is going to be kind of more over here, kind of maybe the top of the chest and the neck, beginning of the neck. Again, I'm not really worried about what the insides are going to look like. I'm just basically now just working on these outside pieces, getting their kind of overall shape or general shape to work. Okay, that looks good right there. Let's move that in, that up. All right. It's not very exciting here yet, but I'm just kind of thinking about where that blocking shape is going to come in. All right, so that's looking good. Lift this up. I kind of come at modeling from an industrial design kind of background, which makes me always kind of think about how these things are going to function. Does this thing not have an inside part? Nope. All right. That's okay. I guess what we could do is do the bridging thing again, but for now I'm going to see what close holes does. Just hopefully it'll give me a good solution. Nope, not a good solution. All right. Well, I guess I can do the bridging. So again, bridge this to here. Turn this to nothing on. Here we go, and then do close holes, and that'll give me a couple of triangles, but again, the minute I subdivide this thing, I'll get quads, so not that big of a deal. All right, and then let's leave some room for this. So just closed up the back of that, and bring everything back, and that piece is just going to go up here like so. Now I have to think about whether I want this to overlap this piece like so or not. I think not. I think this is kind of a better place for it. I'm wondering what this middle piece is. Let's see. That's not what I want. Is it part of this? Let me solo that out. I think, yeah, that's kind of what I was worried about. So these pieces are remnants from there, so I'll just delete them. Delete island and get rid of them this way. All right, so now we just have the arms here. We are good. All right, I'm getting some questions here. Let me focus. Must get a kick out of the Mortal Engine stuff. Yeah. Is what a guys where they talk about how absolutely massive their models were. Oh, I bet their models were gigantic. I didn't see that movie yet, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. All right, somebody from Brazil. Hello. I wish I knew how to say hello in Portuguese. Maybe you can type it in, and next time somebody joins in, I'll use that knowledge I learned. Okay. Q2. Oh, totally screwed up their pipeline because their models were big. Yeah, I don't know. A whole city on wheels in a desert, or on, I don't know. They had some interesting stuff. I can't wait to see the movie. It looked like they did a lot of interesting things. So, and I'm sure those geniuses at Weta figured out ways around that. Okay, so I've got this piece kind of blocked in. I've got this piece blocked in. Let's kind of keep moving up here. Let's go to that. And here for this one, there is the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this into parts as well. I don't want this whole to be one part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this to parts. Okay, so here's the head. And there's that little piece over there, which we can make a little bit bigger. By the way, with what they showed at the ZBrush Summit this year, those folders would come in pretty handy in this situation where I can group these together. So can't wait till that becomes a reality. All right. All right, I think this is kind of good. Keep a slender neck. And I haven't decided yet if I want to keep this head shape or if I want to put something in here, but I can always do that later. But for now, I just kind of want these pieces to do their thing. And I'm trying to select this one piece over here to use my mouse. Here we go. All right, so this is kind of going all over the place, and I don't want it to do that. I just want it to be this kind of piece here in the back. And one of the other things I want for this robot to do when I'm done with it is fold up. So I don't know if you guys have seen, guys and gals have seen the Kim Jong-gi model from Sentoys. Kind of folds up into this kind of rectangular shape. So kind of like that idea. All right, what's going on with this thing? Does it have missing parts too? It does. All right. How do we close this one up? Again, we'll just do the bridging thing. So from here, make sure there's nothing hidden. Nope. All right. Let's see, here to here. And yep, close holes for the rest. Okay, bring everybody back. All right, so this piece here is going to go like so. All right, and I'll have other stuff that is in over here. Now that I did that, this piece over here, I can kind of play around with as well. So again, I'm basically very roughly doing these things to get the shape to work at this level. And then when I add details, it'll all come together instead of spending time adding details and then having the overall shape not work, which is something I see a lot of my students do. getting ready to teach my ZBrush class at Otis. It starts on Thursday and Friday, so I'm excited to get a new batch of students so that they can make some neat stuff. All right. Okay, that's looking good. Let's move on to some other pieces here. Let's move on to this shoulder piece. And this is all kind of broken out to the arms too. So I'm going to try and break these out. So take these two, split hidden, and then go back to here. And let's see if I can split this one to parts. Split to parts. This is just going to add a whole bunch of them, and then I need to actually match them up. So this one here and this one here are together. So let me move that up. Merge down. Okay, so those are together, and then this one is matched up with this one. Move this one up. Merge down. Right, so last but not least, no, that's good, that's good, that's good. What do we have? We got these ones. Where's the other one of those? It's way up there. Okay. And merge this one down as well. All right, let's see. Question. I have a question about design. How did you make decisions while designing the mesh? Such as when you have a couple of ideas, how do you choose which one is the right one? Wilfred, good night, and hope you can watch the rest of this on the when it's recorded and when it's on YouTube. And the question is, yeah, with design, I always constantly go through and make different decisions. I think the biggest thing I can say is visual vocabulary. So if you have seen and watched and looked at a lot of robots and you have studied design and design language, then you know when something looks good to you. And even if it does, I mean, it might not look good later on. So you're constantly changing that design. But what I do is when I design, I usually design the basic shapes first and spend a lot of time, which drives a lot of my customers insane because, you know, for the longest time, they look at things like this and they're like, well, you know, what's going to happen? But once I get this type of design at this level, at the blockout level working, then I just start putting everything together and then they're happy with me. Okay, so let's go ahead and put in this piece. This is going to be kind of the upper arm, and this is going to be lifting a lot of weight and kind of has to deal with a lot of strength, so I'm going to make it a little bit thicker. The back too, maybe like so. And again, this thing's going to have muscles and stuff added to it later, so I'm not really going to care about that yet. I'm sorry, hold RMB, did that answer your question? Design is one of these things where it's going to get better and better and better as time goes on, hopefully, with you. So, you know, as you work on things, your future designs will be better than your past designs and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's kind of looking good for this top part. Let's see what it looks like on both sides. I still don't want to lose the gesture the robot had initially, so I'm just going to continue on making sure I stay true to that gesture. Okay, and this sharp piece here isn't working for me. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is kind of looking okay here. Let's look at it from the side, from the top. Bit of too sharp over here. Let's fix that. Okay, that's good. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one is this one, these ones over here. Right, and these ones I need to kind of widen them up a bit, like so. Okay, this is kind of working well. Right, I'm liking what this is looking like from the front, but I need to make sure it works from all directions. So notice I always go around my model when I'm building things because it needs to look good from all the different angles. So this is kind of a weird transition here. I'm going to change that. Okay. All right, so there's that, and then there'll be kind of a joint in here that will make this part work. And this part over here I can kind of maybe completely get rid of, and then have a soft piece in there that kind of goes over the electronics. So let's see. Okay, I think I'm just going to hide this one for now, or actually I'm going to just move it all the way to the bottom. Over here, and not look at it. All right, let me just see how this is working with all the other parts. We're still looking okay, so let's move back up. Okay, so that's working. All right, let's work a little bit on the hips. I think this is also one piece, which is fine. And kind of liking how this is kind of forming, and then I'll maybe have a spine that comes into the center area. So I'm not really, at this point, I'm just in the exploration stage still. I'm not really looking at reference. I'm just kind of going off of where the design leads me. And this usually, I usually take the time at the beginning of the design process and do this so that I'm not inspired by an existing object, and then I'll use reference for certain specific parts. Okay, that looks good. Will I 3D print this? Probably. I finally got a 3D printer. I haven't really spent that much time on it, but that is something that I take into consideration when I'm building these things. And if I do 3D print it, then I have to really figure out the articulation and where the different connections are. So initially, I'm probably not going to start out with the idea of 3D printing it, but at some point, I might take that direction. We'll see. We'll see how things are going. All right. Sometimes I make big sweeping changes just to kind of give it a bit more dimension. That looks okay for now. Kind of like this being a bit lower. And I like adding a little bit more. Yeah, I could use this to be closed, so I'm going to try and do that. So again, here I'm just going to go into ZModeler and delete these two faces. Delete single poly, 1, 2, turn double on, and what I want to do is close this up. And I wonder if I'm going to do the stitch again, but I'm going to stitch to midpoint. So I'm going to turn off symmetry here. I'm going to select this point and this one. This might be tricky. Hang on, I've got delete on. Turn that off. Do nothing. Okay, here and here. Yep, there you go. This is exactly what I wanted. Cool, cool, cool. And so I can now move this thing back. All right, so have I made articulated toys before? I have not. I've owned a lot of them and played with a lot of them, but I've not made one yet. So this might be the first one. Okay, so what I want to do here is turn symmetry back on. Oh. So thankful for ZBrush saving for me in the background. Sometimes when I'm in a happy place, like in a place where I really like what's going on, I usually just hit this quick save as well, and hit that a whole bunch of times, and then at some point I save it as a file. Okay, so let's see what this looks like with the rest of everything. All right, much better. Okay. Well, too much sticking out. Let me bring it forward this way. All right. Let's see. What model of 3D printer did I get? And do you manually model everything from low poly in ZBrush? Absolutely. That's kind of what I've been doing lately, is just trying to stay in ZBrush for as long as possible. Every once in a while I might need to take things into Maya, but that's getting less and less and less. Of course, if I'm going to animate this thing, I probably will take it into Maya, but I usually stick to ZBrush. As for your question, the 3D printer I should have gotten was a Form 2, but I made the decision to go with something that said that they had better resolution, and they do, and something that said that they were faster, and they are, and that is the Uni-Z slash printer. And so it definitely is maybe faster than a Form 2, and has better resolution than a Form 2 probably, but I've not used the high resolution yet. But I think the Form 2 is a more kind of a home printer, and this thing is kind of more of a hobbyist, kind of a printer. So I find myself spending a lot of time doing things I don't want to do when I just want to be pressing a button and printing something out. So all my friends that have Form 2s are really happy with them, and I probably will get Formlabs printer next. But this Uni-Z printer is not bad for the price. I mean, I got it on Kickstarter and it was pretty decently priced, and it's a good first printer for somebody to have. But I think my next one's probably going to be whatever Formlabs comes out with after the Form 2. Hopefully it's affordable. And the other thing also is it's a good idea to send your model to a service, which is also another thing I'm contemplating doing. Okay, so at this point, this does not really look symmetric to me. So what I do is I'll go in and mirror and weld it. So now it is symmetrical, but then it's created this weird section in the middle, and I can probably use that for something or another. Right, so mirror and weld decide. Oh wow, look at that. That worked out even better. Happy accident. All right, so I got a follow question. So the question is, how much of this mech have I thought about before I am doing it? Do I visualize this and then just do it? I don't. I actually I leave a lot to discovery, especially at this point. If I visualize something in my head, I have very rough ideas of what it is. So, which is kind of an interesting question. I was watching Kim Jong-gi draw at one of his sessions, and I asked him a question. I said, "How much of your drawing is in your head before you start?" And he said 75 to 80%. So he basically sees the thing before he draws it. I don't have that gift. I actually, the thing kind of comes out as I work on it. So same thing with sketching. I leave a lot for exploration. But if I do have something in mind, I can just go ahead and model it. Do you ever use the ZBrush to make things low poly, or is that complicating things too much? Oh, I use ZBrush to make things low poly all the time. You just saw me do it. I use ZBrush a lot. It's kind of like my go-to tool in ZBrush. It's my favorite tool, I think. I think I said that in an interview somewhere. Okay, so here are the legs. Let's go ahead and work on the legs. I kind of like this angle that it has. I'm not really going to mess with that too much. But I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit thicker here, because again, this is going to be the weight-bearing part of the leg. All right. Okay, and I'm also going to have one of those double jointed knees, so I'm just going to here I'm just going to go ahead and turn topological on. You can kind of barely see it. Maybe I can kind of scroll this stuff over. But if I turn topological on, then I can kind of just work on this part and not have it affect this part here. So whatever the brush touches, it just works on that part. And that's super, super useful. And if you don't know where that is, it's under brush. So I have it on my UI, but if you don't know where topological is, there are topological brushes. So there is move topological. So if you go to the move here, move brushes, there's move topological, and basically that's exactly what move does, but with topological on. So I just have a toggle here for topological, and I never use the move topological brush. So, and the way that that works is, again, in this menu over here, I think it's under, is it under modifiers? No, I think it's under auto masking and topological right here. So I took this big button and put it over here in my UI so I can turn it on. All right, so let's go back to the move brush and let's go turn on topological and let's continue working on this leg. All right, any questions on Facebook? Let me make sure I'm scrolling here. Nope, we're all good. Let's continue this on. Right, so again, I kind of like the gesture of the leg here, kind of the way this is coming out. I actually want to accentuate it a bit more. Kind of want to separate out the feet. It's going to be, here we go, that did it. Right there, and then I'm just going to use mask lasso and put it into another subtool. So, or select lasso. So here with select lasso, nope, didn't do it right. So kind of a good way to do it is just kind of start here, do that, and then use the line to isolate it out. Split hidden. All right, let's work on the feet here. So I'm going to look at the whole thing, just figure out feet that will basically make this thing right, this is its own subtool, it is. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to copy this whole thing and then rotate it this way 180 degrees, and that'll be kind of the back part of the foot. All right, I'm going to inflate this a bit. Oops. To get it to be chunkier, like that, and then let's just move it into place. Maybe like that. All right. And that's looking okay for the feet for now. Of course, there's going to be other things on it that are going to stabilize it and make it stand straight. A good trick to use with feet is if you want to kind of make them stand on the ground, I'll just use clip rectangle, and I'll just clip it this way, and then they'll just kind of be flattened out. So now I know that they are hitting a flat surface. All right, let's move back up to here. I'm going to inflate these a bit. Right, it's looking good. And I think I have most of the kind of the basic parts done. Let's go ahead and move up and down the tree. These are the feet. Let's move the feet down over here. This is the head. Let's move that up. All right, that part, move it under the head. And let's see what other parts we have. Move that under the head. All right, that part looks good for now. All right, let's go in here. Looks like it's got an interesting shape over here. All right, so I think this is looking okay. One of the things I try to do is make sure that if it's a quad, that it's as planar as it can be. Here it's not really that planar, but it should be fine. Let me bring that in. Let's get it from the back top. Okay, it's good. All right, so there's that piece right there. I'm going to move that under that neck part. Okay. I don't think we did any work on this one, did we? I don't remember. All right, this one's going to need a lot of work. It's basically going to go here. It's going to be the back. I like the shape that it has in the back, so I'm just going to keep it at that. Maybe add a little bit of this, see if the gesture still works. It does. So this is attaching to this part over here, so I need to make that kind of work. Okay, and I'm going to have other things inside here later on. I think next week we'll start building our kit bash parts, and then I'll show you some other ones that I use all the time. Okay, good. That's good. And then I'll move that up to underneath there. What's this piece right here? I think we did that one. We sure did. All right. This one we did as well. Yep. All right, the forearms and the hands. I'll go ahead and separate those out. Let's go to mask lasso. Split hidden. And I like the gesture of the hands. I can give them a little bit more, maybe. Just again, these are going to be replaced. These probably are not going to be there at all. But for now, just kind of let's create some interesting shape that kind of tells me I'm going to have hands there. And then this top part, though, I am going to definitely need. That's the forearm. I want to inflate that up. Like so. And like so. All right, so for those of you that are just joining us, what we're doing is we are going ahead and creating kind of these pieces here that we're going to sculpt or model into detail later on. So hopefully I'll get done with all of them so I can actually take one of them a little bit further to secondary shapes today. All right, so arms, these are the feet, so let's move this one up to here and this one up to here as well. And let's see, this over here are the by next time, I won't do this on the stream because it's going to be boring, but next time I'll name all these. I always tell my students to name everything. It's a good idea to do that, and I'll do that offline. So next time when we continue to work on this, all these items will have their names. Okay, so that looked okay. Move that up here. Again, a folder structure would make this so much more efficient, but for now, I'm just going to use what we have, which is awesome in itself. All right, let's see. Question: do you have greebles that you continually use? Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Kit bash parts. I use Vitaly's kit quite a bit. His Subd kit bash kit, and I use that a lot, and I also change it a lot. So what's nice about it is that since it's Subd, I can go ahead and do all sorts of fun things with it. Okay, so here I've got another one of those situations where I can delete these inside parts. Delete a single poly. Oops, not those, but these ones. And then let's see what close hole does to this. It's not bad. Let's see, symmetric. It is. And then let me just do a mirror and weld. That adds that middle line. So now I can do some more cool things with it. While watching, I recall you talked about basic shapes and box modeling human on Gnomon 2017, which is pretty helpful for me. Great to learn from you. Not only your technique, but your thought. Okay, yeah, thanks. That's what this is all about. Yeah, the basic shapes thing is kind of, one of the most important things I've learned, and I still see a lot of artists struggling because they don't use that kind of methodology. So for this one, I think it would look better if it was just completely flipped around. So I'm just going to flip this thing 180 degrees around. Oops, maybe without symmetry on. Center this. And there, that looks better. All right. Now, one of the things is I don't really like the way that back part is kind of pointy, so I'm going to straighten that out. So I'm going to do it in two ways. First thing I'm going to do is create a geometry for it. So I'm going to use clip or slice curve and just slice it this way. Okay, so that basically created geometry for it. And then the next thing I'm going to do is clip curve and straighten that out so it's not pointy. And then just kind of smooth this out in the back. And this is exactly kind of what I want. Let's go ahead and bring everybody back. And yep. There we go. All right, so let's see where that is in the order of things. I'm going to move that to the top of where the legs are. Okay, so there's going to be stuff in here that's going to attach to the legs from the hips. And I think I can move the legs down a bit here. Yep, you should move the feet down too. All right, moving down the parts list. I think we're getting close. I'm going to move this to where the legs are too. And then this up even further. All right, let's wait for a quick save. Oh, wait, there's a question on Facebook. Hi. Oh, you're welcome, Martin. Happy to have you on the stream. Okay, so even at this point, I can go in and make some modifications. So let's see here. This is all looking good. Now the problem is when I bring these back, these are going to work out in their locations, but the ones for the legs, they're not. So we're going to have to move those, which is fine. Okay, what's this and that? Okay, those are good too. All right, I'm going to move these two up in place, and then we'll go ahead and get started on one of these and start refining them. I think the head, maybe, what's this one? Nope, further up. Yep, that's good for where it is, and then move. I kind of would have done this organization offline too, but I think it's useful for you to watch it. I know some of it can get repetitive, but eventually it's really helpful. Then move this one up above those. All right, so we got that, then that, then that, then that. Okay, good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and pick one of these pieces and start taking it to secondary shapes. So once again, I'm going to start with this one and see what we can do with it. All right, so I'm just going to isolate that one out, and then let's go ahead and see what happens if we subdivide it. All right, so it looks like this, and my basic forms are kind of happening fine. So see, now it's all quads over here where it used to be triangles. So that's good. I'm not going to mess with this part because I kind of like the way it is. Looks like this needs a little bit of tweaking to make it planar. Okay, not bad. All right, let's go ahead and divide it one more time. And one more. This area here is a challenge, so let's go ahead and go back to one, lift that up, then move back up. So notice here I am still working with hard surface, but I'm using just regular sculpting tools to go ahead and soften up some of those hard edges where they need to be soft, and then keeping the rest exactly the way it is. And then divide it again. All right, let's see kind of what this did. Go ahead and choose Damien Standard here and see what kind of line I get. Still needs to be divided further. So just kind of from a poly count perspective, so this is kind of still 17,000 polys. It's not that much. And let's see what Damien Standard does to this. Oops. All right, we're getting a little bit of shape here, and start dividing it even more. So now I'm at level 6, level 7. 7 is good, maybe one more, and now I can get really fine detail. All right, so let's start adding some cut lines to this. At this point, I don't need polyframe, and what's good is if you turn polyframe off at this point, you kind of see what is causing you not to have planar shapes. I'm just going to go to H polish here and polish up some of these areas that kind of look choppy. Right, and then this front part has a little bit of tweaking that needs to be done. And by the way, you can do these lower subdivision levels too. All right. Okay, I kind of like these hard lines over here, but I might want to smooth them up. So I'm going to go down a few subdivision levels and do that smoothing. Kind of figuring out whether I want to keep that crease in the middle, and I kind of do, but not all the way through. So I might need to not have it here. I have to kind of figure out a transition from this crease coming in here to not being there on the top part. Smooth this out a bit, and polish it down so I can get a softer edge, softer corner. Softer corner over here, and then use H polish to kind of hammer it in. And if I want to bring the crease back out, Damien Standard is really good for that. So here, let me go ahead and increase my lazy radius and just pop that in here again, so I still have that crease where it was before. All right, so now I kind of have more sculptural and not so kind of stiff looking edges over here. And this is kind of setting up the secondary shapes of the object so that later on when I drop in some of my alphas, it will work out well. And what I mean by that is here, I'll show you one. How about one of these guys? Or how about one of these guys right here? Right, so if I want to do, it's too big. And let me jump back up to level 8. So if I add one of these things over here, you notice that there's enough resolution for them. Right, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm just going to refine this just to kind of get that overall shape. So right now I'm getting into more of the secondary shapes, secondary forms, and getting this to work in such a way where at this point it's a good idea to kind of add a shiny material to it. So I'm going to go to basic material 2 to see if like I've got where my specular highlights are and make sure they're continuous. So here it looks like it was a bit choppy, so I need to fix that. Like so. So now it is hard surface, but it's also real looking hard surface versus like the geometric shapes we had earlier. Like if you look at what's going on here, or you look at what's going on here, it looks very CG, but when you look over kind of on this part over here, it doesn't look as CG as those parts. All right, let's see. Any questions on Facebook? Nope. All right. And again, if I want to tighten up these edges, I can always kind of hit it a little bit with H polish, which is like a miraculous brush, and get them to work. All right, so this front part's good. Working on this part over here. So I want these to kind of be pointy, but not as they were before. And this is kind of an interesting shape change over here, so I need to figure out how to make that work. I think I'm just going to H polish fill this area right here. H polish with Alt is also really useful. Okay, break down this edge a bit. All right, so now I've got a good part of this kind of front part done. I got to start thinking maybe about tertiary shapes. Usually what I do is I just don't continue this on, but since we got about maybe half an hour left, maybe I'll just kind of work a little bit on this piece to give you an idea of what the other pieces are going to be like. And my intent is to do most of this work on this model online in the stream, but I might do some of it offline as well if it's repetitive, because right, get that edge to work here. I'm kind of not liking this little continuity here, so what I'm going to do is change the shape down. So it basically, this silhouette of the edge is what's happening. So to do that, I'm just going to use the clip curve. Just going to zoom in on one part of it, and then just get the curve to kind of work. Do this one more time. Nope. Clip curve is really very powerful. All right, so do that. Maybe, yeah, it's working. Oh, that's why. All right, let's take it to subdivision level 8 and just do this. Right. There. All right, so now I have that kind of clean edge. ZBrush time could take care of everything in the back. I'm do the same thing over here. This doesn't matter, just do that. Okay. I have a question here. Do you not fancy orbs brushes for the planar stuff? I like the orbs brushes. I use them. Yeah, orbs brushes are really good. I think I have them here. Orb, 2 or 3 of them. Let's do O. Yep. Oops. BO. Yeah, orb cut, orb flatten edge, orb cracks. I definitely have the orbs brushes. Super useful. All right, this is all very good. And what's nice is that since I have all these subdivision levels, I can go down a few subdivision levels, delete higher, and then divide again. and still get interesting planar shapes. So down to 8 here. So notice what I did was I just kind of went back down, deleted the higher levels, and then came back up. And that gives me some of those hard edges again. I want this to be a little bit straighter, so let me do that. I should not be doing this at level 8. Maybe at this level. Yep, I'm liking that a lot more. All right. All right, need to hit this with H-polish a little bit. So soften up some of those edges. All right, so now I got to start thinking about cut lines, right? So I'm going to think about like, okay, well, this is one piece, but does it have stuff inside of it? And it does. So for cut lines, I can use Damien Standard, which is really good, or I can use MAH cut here. Either one of those two works good. So I'll go ahead and do this one for now. See what that does. I need it to be a little bit deeper, maybe go to 15. And also make sure my lazy radius is 30, that's good. Maybe a bit bigger here, and let's see what that does. That's good. All right, so sometimes I just go ahead and start sculpting with it, and sometimes I go and paint it in and then trace my paint. So I'll do both. I'll go ahead and go to paint here, so and then choose, let's fill this with white. Switch color to black. Yep, okay. Right, so what I'm going to do here is kind of figure out how the cut lines go. So let's say and RGB intensity is good. Let's just add a bit of a lazy mouse to this, maybe about 40. And let's just draw this out like so. Okay, maybe that's a cut line. Didn't like that too much. Maybe start here. One of the things I forget to do is stop drawing. So when you stop drawing, that way it means you can kind of either go over it and you can keep that line. So once you like something, just let go and don't continue to draw. So that's looking good. Maybe have another cut line going this way. And then bring this up. Over here. Maybe have that be empty in here. And then go completely opposite to the geometry to kind of make a panel like so. So this front part is a panel that opens up probably, and this is where all the electronics and everything is. Obviously for the battle version of this robot, this is kind of covered up even more. Okay, so see, this is a lot better to just kind of paint it in this way because you can easily kind of change things around. But if you did put in the cut line itself, then if you don't like it, then it's kind of a hassle to get it back. All right, so I'm not liking this part here, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to make this work. There, that looks better. All right. see what this looks like from the side. Maybe bring it in this way. So here I'm just basically sketching on top of my model. And then, okay, so this is good, like so. All right, so this kind of opens up. And now I got to figure out how it opens up. Does it open up this way, or does it open up that way, or does it just completely come off? I think I'm going to have it completely come off, and then I'll have handles that I could use to kind of open it up with. All right, so there's that. All right. Hello, somebody just joined us. For those of you that are just joining us, what we're doing is we're starting to work on the separate pieces here. So I've taken this one chess piece, and what I'm doing is I am kind of taking it as far as I can with secondary shapes, and then figuring out where to put some tertiary shapes like cut lines and whatnot. Okay. Right, so that's good. And then maybe this opens up with handles, but kind of hinges on to certain things. So I'm going to maybe create a area for it here to open up. So again, I'm always thinking about how mechanically these things are going to work. Because again, it doesn't have to work, it just has to look like it does. All right. Okay, so that's looking good. And I don't know how this is going to come together, but we'll figure it out in a little bit. All right. A lot of times I use another technique for this. So if I don't want to actually draw it in and I kind of want ZBrush to do the work for me, and I'll show you that later on another part, is what I do is I basically photo bash some images onto this. I have a library of photo bash images, and I just photo bash images onto it to kind of get the general shape. And let's quick save, finish saving here. See, quick save is going to take me a long time now because I'm starting to have parts that have a lot of geometry. So that's why I like to work on secondary shapes, because again, the saves are really fast. And then as things develop, then is when I start adding more geometry to it. All right, so this is looking good. Over here, that's the panel that comes in this way. All right, and then I want to continue this up. So this opens up, but then there's this top part that kind of maybe folds open somehow as well. This is not as immediately kind of accessible as the other part, but there's another part that opens up on the top, maybe has a handle over here. Maybe this thing has two handles that come out this way. I'll have to figure out how to put them in later on. Okay, and then maybe there's like another kind of little panel that kind of goes around this way. All right, so now that I've got this, I'll go ahead and just hit it with, so basically these two colors are what I'm using. So when I'm drawing, it's the darker color, and if I hold Alt down, it's the lighter color. So I can just add and subtract on here until I get what I want. So here I'm just going to go ahead and make a bigger brush size and just kind of hit this with the subtractive color just to kind of get a little bit of an outline of it, and then I'll use the MAH cut to go ahead and put in these cut lines. I don't want them to be in color, so there's one. Actually, color looks good. There's this line. Connect this up to here. Okay, and then this comes down this way. I need more lazy radius. Maybe take this out to 50. All right, and close it up. Oops. All right, so now if I want to see what this looks like, I can always fill my object with white. And that's what that cut line is going to look like. I like it. I think this one's kind of dipping in a bit, so I'll fix that. By the way, good idea to do something is when you do cut lines is to set a morph target before. I didn't do it for these ones, but I'll do it for the subsequent one. Okay, so this is kind of the panel that's going to open. I'm liking it a lot, and so I'm happy with this panel. I'm just going to leave it be. What I'm going to do here, though, is do one of these things. There's a little bit of a recess. Probably these are like the switches or the locks or something that open it up. All right. All right, the other thing is parts like this never are like this kind of CGI smooth material. So what I want to do here is I want to add some noise to this to see what it looks like at this point. So here I'm just going to go ahead and smooth these out a bit so that my panel has its shape. So I have that initial shape of it, but I also am deciding to forego those sharp corners. And even though I have kind of this type of a shape to it, it does not have those sharp corners that CG kind of always is guilty of. All right, and let's go ahead and see what that looks like with some noise on it. So I'm going to use Noisemaker. Surface, and let's add some noise. It's way too big. Maybe something like that. And then have that kind of strength. All right, so this kind of makes it a little bit more realistic looking, so that's good. I'm not going to apply this right now. I'm just going to say OK. It's there, but it's not. I have not applied it, so I'm going to turn it off. So I can turn it on and off at any point in time to kind of see what it looks like. If it looks good, kind of as a metallic shape. And right now I'm liking it. And then go back to my cut here. I can actually even go to H polish and make a small brush and kind of fix up this area over here. Like so. Okay. All right, and I just want to make sure what subdivision level am I on? I'm on 8, I think. Yep, good. All right, so that's one cut line. I'll go ahead and start adding some other cut lines and maybe adding some of those parts that I talked about earlier. So let's see, any questions? I don't see any questions on Facebook. No questions on Twitch or. All right, so here I got to figure out where these parts go. Okay, so see these parts are kind of coming in, but they're a little bit fuzzy. That means I need another subdivision level, so I'll take that to 9. And now they're working out better. So maybe there's one of these. Over here like so. I think it's a bit too deep. Let's decrease the intensity of this thing. There you go, that's better. So I'm going to invert that and just kind of put these over here so that when this opens, there'd be like some sort of a a stop thing for it. So the handles are going to be here. And I'm assuming this thing opens to the top. Let's see. Yep, that makes more sense. So this thing kind of opens this way out. And later on, if I want to cut it up, I can do it as well. I would not be doing this if this was something I was working on. What I'd be doing is I'd be doing all this stuff much later on in the process. That looks good over there. Yep, I think that's where I'm going to keep them. So that's good for now. And then I think I've got another one here. These brushes, that's pretty useful. This one. So these basically are just, very, so the basis of these brushes, I should explain that. The basis of these brushes is they are this brush right here, which is the layer brush, right? So it's just this layer brush. And what I've done is I've taken that layer brush, used a stroke that is the drag rectangle, this one. I can also use drag dot. I've done that sometimes too. And I just have an alpha, which is just basically this rectangle shape, and then I just basically drag those on. So it's always nice to add these things sparingly to areas that are going to get bumped. So if it had handles, for example, this would be kind of a good base for the handles to kind of come out of. I'm not liking that there. Maybe. Nope. There we go. Let's see what happens if I go all the way through. Interesting, but not there. Maybe further out. There, that looks good. Now this made a big structural change, and I probably should have done this with geometry, but I think it's looking okay. I'm just going to stick with this, and then maybe see what this looks like over here. Okay. What's interesting is that kind of made that change over there. I'm just going to go with it. Let me downgrade the subdivision levels here. Yeah, see, it kind of falls apart, but that's fine. I'm not going to make any big structural changes. I'm just going to kind of go with what this did. Maybe smooth it out a bit and go to level 8 and kind of be happy with this shape. All right, so that's good. And then I probably need something to go over here. Let's see if I can find another piece, maybe one of these guys. That's good. And maybe I'll pop out a couple of cylinders or something out of that. All right, that's looking good. And then next time maybe we'll build some handles for this and then use it as a insert mesh brush and then just use it maybe some other different places. Okay, so just kind of hitting this with some H polish. It's looking pretty good. Let's see if I can do anything over in this area. Maybe do a couple of these, but indent them in. Oops, too much. Yep, that looks good like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the drag dot because it will give me um, the same size. So I'll put one here and I'll do another one right next to it. It's a bit tricky, but got to be really gentle. It works better with a mouse than a tablet sometimes. Here, let me just use it with a mouse. Another thing I can also do is double up on the alpha over here and then just do it in one shot. Maybe that's what I'll do. All right, so we're coming down to 9 o'clock here. Let me see any last questions before we leave this here and then continue in it on the next stream. Any questions, anybody? So it doesn't seem like any questions. So I would like to wish everybody a good night, and I will be on again. So I'm on every other Tuesday. So next Tuesday I won't be on, but the Tuesday after I will be, and that will be session number 3. So thanks everyone for attending, and we'll see you in the next stream. And again, if you have more questions or anything like that, you can maybe ask them on the YouTube or Twitch channel chats, and I will find stuff for it there. All right. Have a good night.